She never stood a chance. The moment Emma Carter hit the water, the crowd thought it was all part of the show. The flips, the splashes, the perfect choreography between human and predator. But what they didn't see was the fear in her eyes. What they didn't hear were the distorted whistles echoing beneath the surface. What they didn't know was that the star of the show had already crossed a line no one could pull her back from. Lyra, the ocean's deadliest hunter, had been showing signs for weeks. Restlessness, defiance. The cracks beneath the flawless performances were there for anyone willing to see, but no one listened. And when Emma's body shattered against the water, when the teeth of an 8,000-pound apex predator clamped down on her chest, it was already too late. Today, we reveal the terrifying truth behind one of the most shocking marine park tragedies, the final, horrifying moments of Emma Carter, and the brutal lesson that cost her life. Because when you play with nature, nature always plays back, on its own terms.
The OceanLife Adventure Park was alive with its usual symphony of sounds. The distant cries of gulls, the rhythmic slosh of salt water against acrylic walls, and the hum of thousands of tourists exploring one of Florida's most popular marine attractions. Children ran along the concrete pathways, ice cream cones in hand, their parents trailing behind, glancing at colorful maps that promised unforgettable encounters with ocean giants. But behind the staged perfection, something wasn't right. Emma Carter stood at the edge of the training pool, arms crossed, eyes narrowing as she observed the star of the park, Lyra, a 6-meter female orca whose sleek black and white body sliced through the water with effortless grace. Or at least, that was how it used to be. Today, her movements told a different story. Lyra's dorsal fin curved unnaturally as she swam tight, repetitive circles along the tank's perimeter. Her eyes, once curious and intelligent, now seemed distant, cold even. The rhythmic vocalizations that Emma had grown so familiar with were replaced by erratic whistles and unsettling clicks that echoed off the tank walls. A tight knot twisted in Emma's stomach. This wasn't the Lyra she knew, the animal she'd spent 5 years training, laughing with, building a connection most trainers only dreamed of. But experience taught Emma one thing. Orcas always showed you their warning signs. You just had to be willing to see them. She pulled her headset closer. "Control, this is Emma. Lyra's exhibiting repetitive circling and abnormal vocal patterns again. Mark it down." A crackle came through the radio. The operations manager, David Wright, responded, his voice heavy with dismissal. "Understood. Keep monitoring. She'll settle. Busy weekend. Press wants their photo ops." Emma exhaled slowly, masking her frustration. This wasn't the first time she'd raised concerns. Over the past 2 months, Lyra's behavior had changed. First small things, ignoring simple commands, hesitation before shows, lingering near the deep end for hours after closing. Then came the aggression. Snap reactions toward junior trainers. A terrifying incident where Lyra slapped the surface inches from a colleague's face. Each time, Emma documented the patterns. Each time, management downplayed the risks. Tourists leaned against the glass, snapping selfies, unaware of the growing storm beneath the surface. Emma's eyes remained fixed on Lyra. The orca swam another loop, her body language rigid, posture defensive. Emma clenched her fists, a whisper only she could hear escaping her lips. "She's telling us something, and no one's listening." Tomorrow's main show was sold out. Thousands of spectators expected flawless entertainment. But Emma had been around orcas long enough to know the ocean hides its anger well, and when it breaks the surface, it's always too late. The evening air clung heavy over OceanLife Adventure Park, carrying the sharp scent of salt and chlorine across the empty stadium seats. It was long past closing time, but the park's heart, the orca habitat, remained restless. Emma Carter stood by the control panel, overlooking Lyra's pool, watching the moonlight ripple across the water's surface. The powerful female orca floated silently near the deep end, her dark silhouette drifting just beneath the surface like a shadow from another world. Behind her, maintenance crews moved in and out of the filtration room, their boots echoing against the concrete floors. A technician emerged, wiping his forehead, frustration etched into his face. "System's acting up again," he muttered, glancing at Emma. "The filtration units are cycling irregularly. We'll patch it for now, but it's overdue for a full overhaul." Emma's brow furrowed. "Overhaul? Why wasn't I told this sooner?" The man shrugged. "Management's call. They want everything running for tomorrow. Big weekend, full stadium. They said no delays." Her jaw tightened. The warning signs were stacking up. Lyra's erratic behavior, her escalating aggression, now environmental instability. Orcas were creatures of habit, sensitive to every detail of their surroundings. A malfunction in the filtration system could easily throw off the delicate balance of the tank, the salinity, the temperature, even the soundscape. Emma turned back to the glass, eyes locked onto Lyra. The orca was still now, barely moving, yet her presence radiated unease. Moments later, a piercing whistle cut through the stillness, shrill, unnatural, reverberating across the empty stadium. Emma's chest constricted. That vocalization wasn't part of Lyra's normal repertoire. It was distorted, sharp, almost like a cry of distress. The radio clipped to her belt crackled again. David Wright's voice filled her earpiece. "Emma, I need you cleared for tomorrow's headline performance. Full sequence with Lyra. No deviations." Her fingers hovered over the transmitter, hesitation tightening her grip. She wanted to refuse, to call off the show entirely. But protocol, pressure, and pride wrapped around her like chains. The park's reputation, the staff's paychecks, even her own career, all tied to the illusion of control. "I'll be ready," she answered quietly, though her voice carried no confidence. As the technicians filed out, the pool lights dimmed, casting the water in a haunting glow. Lyra's shadow drifted once more along the glass, her massive form gliding close. For the briefest moment, their eyes met, an unsettling exchange. Gone was the curiosity Emma had known for years. In its place lingered something colder, more primal. Tomorrow, the seats would be filled, the cameras flashing, the music blaring. But beneath the polished spectacle, something was unraveling, something no one wanted to face. Emma stayed by the tank long after the others left, the whistle of the wind mixing with the faint, eerie clicks from below. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but it was coming. The sun rose over OceanLife Adventure Park, casting a golden shimmer across the Orca Stadium. By mid-morning, the seats were already filling, families laughing, children bouncing with excitement, the hum of anticipation buzzing through the humid Florida air. Behind the scenes, Emma Carter adjusted her wetsuit in the staff locker room, her hands trembling slightly as she secured the waterproof headset. The voices of her colleagues echoed around her, light-hearted, oblivious. But beneath their casual chatter, Emma carried a weight she couldn't shake. She had barely slept. The haunting image of Lyra's glassy eyes and unsettling vocalizations played over in her mind like a broken reel. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. But the schedule was set, the audience was waiting, and management had made it clear there would be no cancellations. At precisely 11 o'clock a.m., the announcer's voice boomed through the amphitheater, welcoming over 4,000 spectators to the park's signature show, Ocean Fury. Music blasted, lights danced across the pool, and cameras flashed as tourists leaned forward, eager for the spectacle to begin. Emma stood at her mark by the main platform, scanning the shimmering surface of the water. For a moment, everything seemed still. Too still. Then, Lyra emerged. Her sleek black and white body glided into the performance zone, drawing cheers from the crowd. But Emma's trained eye caught the subtle signs: the rigid posture, the hesitance in her approach, the tight circles along the tank's perimeter. It was a pattern Lyra hadn't displayed since her early days of captivity. Emma's earpiece crackled. "Emma, confirm sequence start," David Wright's voice commanded. She hesitated, swallowing the lump in her throat. Sequence confirmed. The show unfolded as rehearsed, at least on the surface. Lyra executed her programmed jumps, tail slaps, and spins. To the untrained eye, it was flawless. But every movement felt strained, her responses delayed, her usual grace replaced by something mechanical, forced. Emma's heart pounded as they approached the final act, the hurricane ride. It was the park's most dangerous maneuver, one that required perfect coordination and absolute trust. Emma would ride atop Lyra's rostrum, while the Orca performed rapid spins, culminating in a high-velocity launch through the center of the pool. Her pulse quickened. Every fiber of her being screamed to abort, but protocol was unforgiving. She met Lyra's gaze one final time as they positioned themselves. The crowd counted down, the music swelled, and they began. The first spin was uneven, the second even more erratic. Lyra's echolocation clicks pierced through the blaring soundtrack, rapid and disjointed. Suddenly, Lyra twisted violently to the left, her massive frame jolting off course. Emma lost her grip. The world spun. The roar of the crowd blurred into chaos as Emma's body crashed into the water, the cold shock knocking the air from her lungs. Before she could react, before safety devices could deploy, a dark shadow loomed beneath her. Lyra was coming. The impact of the water knocked the breath from Emma Carter's lungs. Cold waves crashed around her, muffling the deafening roar of the crowd above. Disoriented, she struggled to regain control, her hand instinctively reaching for the emergency flotation device clipped to her vest. But it was too late. A shadow larger than life surged through the turquoise depths. Lyra. Her massive frame moved with terrifying precision. Her eyes locked onto Emma with a cold, predatory focus that stripped away years of training and trust in an instant. Emma barely had time to process the betrayal before Lyra lunged. The Orca's jaws clamped around her torso, crushing with unimaginable force. Bones cracked beneath the pressure. Pain exploded across her chest. A strangled scream escaped Emma's lips, but it was swallowed by the water. Above the surface, the cheers of the crowd twisted into horrified gasps. Parents shielded their children's eyes. Some spectators froze in shock, while others scrambled for the exits, pushing past security personnel who rushed toward the pool. Bright orange safety buoys splashed into the water, trainers waving poles and signaling for Lyra to release Emma. But the Orca was no longer following commands. Instinct had taken over. Lyra thrashed her head side to side, Emma's limp body gripped firmly in her jaws. The violent motion mirrored how orcas in the wild dismantle seals. Brutal, efficient, unstoppable. Panic spread like wildfire through the stadium. Shouts echoed from the control room. The emergency broadcast system activated, a calm but firm voice instructing sections of the audience to evacuate in stages to prevent a stampede. But inside the tank, there was no order, only chaos. Lyra dragged Emma down to the deepest part of the 10-meter pool. Trainers pounded the water's surface, tossed fish, and triggered underwater distress sounds designed to disorient orcas during emergencies. Nothing worked. Lyra resurfaced briefly, Emma's motionless body slipping from her jaws, only to seize her again with terrifying accuracy. Blood mingled with the once clear water, tinting it a deep, ominous red. Emma's colleagues fought against the rising terror, desperately trying to intervene, but Lyra's aggression escalated. Her massive form slammed against the acrylic walls, shaking the glass panels that separated predator from spectator. Families clung to each other, their faces pale, eyes wide with disbelief. 7 minutes felt like eternity. Each time Lyra rose to the surface, the hope of ending the nightmare flickered, only to be crushed as she dragged Emma back into the depths. The orca locked in a behavioral frenzy beyond human control, and then, in front of thousands of stunned onlookers, Lyra pinned Emma against the underwater viewing glass, a haunting, intimate display of raw, primal force. The bond they once shared dissolved, replaced by a chilling reminder. Beneath the surface, nature never forgets what it truly is. The emergency sirens blared across OceanLife Adventure Park as chaos rippled through the stadium. Security personnel scrambled to clear panicked spectators, while the remaining trainers at poolside braced for the unthinkable. Inside the water, Emma Carter's body drifted limply as Lyra circled once more, her massive form cutting through the blood-stained waves. The orca showed no sign of recognition, no response to the flashing emergency signals, no reaction to the food tossed into the pool. Her mind was locked in a predatory trance, instincts buried by years of captivity now exploding to the surface with lethal precision. Assistant trainer Miguel Reyes fumbled with the emergency net system, his hands shaking as he tried to deploy the underwater barriers designed to isolate aggressive animals. But the mechanism jammed halfway. The net tangled in the railings. "Systems down!" he shouted over the radio, panic tightening his throat. Lisa Monroe, the senior trainer stationed by the control booth, initiated the acoustic recall, sharp, high-frequency tones designed to lure orcas into a separate medical tank. But Lyra didn't even flinch. Her behavior was no longer influenced by years of conditioning. Only raw, taboo animal instinct remained. Emma's colleagues watched helplessly as Lyra dragged her down once more, holding her submerged for agonizing seconds before releasing her lifeless body, only to snatch it again with chilling precision. Every attempt to intervene was met with resistance. Lyra's tail sliced through the water with terrifying force, sending violent waves crashing against the tank walls. Trainers with long metal poles tried to create distance, but Lyra outmaneuvered them at every turn. 7 minutes stretched into eternity. Finally, the technical crew managed to untangle the emergency net, creating a narrow barrier that momentarily separated Lyra from Emma. Paramedics rushed to the edge of the pool, pulling Emma's battered body to the surface. Her face was pale, her wetsuit torn, deep puncture wounds and fractures covering her torso. There was no pulse. They worked in frantic silence. CPR, oxygen masks, defibrillator pads pressed to her chest. But the damage was irreversible. At exactly 11:47 a.m., Emma Carter was declared dead. Cause of death: massive trauma and drowning. As Lyra continued to pace the pool, oblivious to the devastation around her, the truth became undeniable. The warnings had been there, the behavioral red flags, the technical failures, the growing unease among the staff. but they had been ignored in favor of sold-out shows and photo opportunities. Emma's death wasn't an isolated accident. It was the inevitable consequence of pride, denial, and the refusal to respect nature's boundaries. The show was over, but the price had been paid in blood. By the afternoon, news of the tragedy had already spread beyond the walls of OceanLife Adventure Park. Helicopters hovered above the property. Reporters lined the entrance gates, shoving microphones toward security guards as sobbing families exited the park with wide, terrified eyes. Within hours, images of the blood-filled pool and frantic rescue attempts flooded social media, igniting a storm of outrage. Headlines blared across every major outlet. Trainer killed during Orca show. Park under fire. Shattered illusion. OceanLife's deadly encounter. Killer whale or victim of captivity. Inside the staff conference room, silence hung heavy. Emma's colleagues sat motionless, their expressions blank, their uniforms still damp from the chaotic rescue attempts. No one spoke. The management team huddled near the window, their voices hushed but urgent. Legal advisors whispered damage control strategies. PR representatives drafted statements, carefully choosing every word to deflect responsibility. But the truth was impossible to conceal. In the following days, an official investigation revealed what many within the park already suspected. Lyra's escalating aggression hadn't been random. It was the result of a pattern, one ignored by those at the top. Internal reports, dating back months, detailed her behavioral decline. Repetitive circling along the tank's perimeter, nighttime vocalizations indicating stress, increased resistance to basic commands, physical aggression toward junior trainers, all warning signs meticulously documented, all systematically downplayed. Worse still, records exposed systemic failures within the park's operations. The filtration malfunction the night before the show wasn't a first. Maintenance logs showed recurring technical issues left unresolved to avoid costly repairs. Emma's own reports, filled with concern for both animal and staff safety, had been buried under layers of bureaucracy and profit-driven agendas. OceanLife's leadership couldn't escape the backlash. Public protests erupted outside the gates. Former employees came forward, sharing stories of mismanagement, ignored warnings, and the dangerous illusion that these powerful creatures could be safely controlled for entertainment. Within 6 months, attendance at OceanLife plummeted. Sponsors withdrew. Lawsuits mounted. The park's board of directors had no choice. In early 2023, OceanLife Adventure Park closed its doors permanently. Lyra was transferred to a secured marine research facility, her public performances permanently suspended. She would never share a tank with humans again. For Emma's family, her death left a gaping wound. But her story ignited global conversations about the ethics of marine animal captivity and the limits of human arrogance. The shimmering pools, bright banners, and staged applause were gone. In their place remained a stark reminder. Beneath the surface, nature always claims its due. And when warnings go unheard, the consequences are irreversible. The stadium was empty now. Where once thousands of voices cheered beneath the blinding lights, only silence remained. The towering bleachers were deserted. The vibrant banners featuring smiling trainers and leaping orcas had been torn down. And the stage that promised excitement now stood as a graveyard of broken trust. In the center of the abandoned park, by the edge of the Orca pool, a small memorial took shape. Candles flickered in the soft evening breeze. Bouquets of white lilies and handwritten notes lined the glass panels where Emma Carter had once stood, her hand pressed gently to the acrylic, teaching visitors that connection could bridge the vast space between human and wild. Now that belief carried scars. Former colleagues gathered in solemn silence, their faces etched with grief, regret, and the heavy weight of knowing that the tragedy had been preventable. They had seen the signs. They had felt the shift beneath the surface. But pride and routine had dulled their instincts, and the price was irreversible. Among the mourners stood Emma's younger sister, Rachel Carter, her eyes red from tears, yet unwavering in their quiet defiance. She placed a photograph at the center of the memorial, Emma, smiling, sunlit, reaching out toward Lyra with hope in her gaze. But that image no longer told the full story. Nearby, the once pristine waters of the tank were stagnant, dark, and eerily still. Lyra was gone, relocated to a marine research facility far from the public eye. Her performances were over, her world confined by walls, her future unknown. For some, she was a monster, a predator who betrayed her trainer. For others, she was a victim, an apex hunter caged and molded into an illusion of obedience until nature violently reclaimed control. In the weeks that followed, Emma's death sparked global outcry. Activists demanded sweeping reforms. Lawmakers debated bans on captive orca shows. Former trainers, marine biologists, and whistleblowers came forward, sharing their fears, their failures, their pleas that had gone unanswered. And at the center of every conversation, one truth echoed: trust does not tame nature. Emma's legacy became more than a tragic headline. It became a symbol, a painful, cautionary reminder etched into the consciousness of an industry that had long blurred the lines between entertainment and exploitation. As the sun set over the abandoned stadium, the candles by the glass flickered once more. Beneath the fading light, etched into the concrete, a plaque read, "In memory of Emma Carter, who loved the ocean, but never forgot that even love has limits." The waves beyond the park whispered their eternal warning. And this time, the world was listening. The tragedy of Emma Carter is not just a story about one trainer, one orca, or one failed show. It is a brutal reminder of how easily human confidence, corporate greed, and the desire for entertainment can blind us to the raw, unpredictable force of nature. For years, we convinced ourselves that through training, routines, and rehearsals, we could rewrite the instincts of apex predators, that love, repetition, and control could somehow overwrite millions of years of evolution. But as the waters of ocean life ran red, that illusion shattered. Emma wasn't the first. She won't be the last. As long as powerful creatures like Lyra are kept in concrete tanks, as long as warning signs are ignored in the name of profit, these tragedies will repeat themselves over and over again. The ocean cannot be tamed. Trust does not erase instinct, and love alone is never enough to silence the wild. What do you think? Do you believe orca shows should be banned for good? Should wild animals ever be forced to perform for human entertainment? Or do you believe there's still a way to balance interaction with safety? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters in these conversations, and maybe, just maybe, it can help prevent the next tragedy. If you found this story important, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We uncover the hidden truths behind the world's most dangerous animal encounters, stories that need to be heard. Until next time, stay aware, stay safe, and never forget, nature always gets the final say.